really fantastic. I got out on the water, and I was fishing to my heart's content. Got totally skunked. Johnny and Bill are the two key players. They're the ones who brought in all the fish. And by the way, that was your dinner tonight. Those of you who had the fish pasta. Oh, you wanted the shrimp? Oh, sorry about that. That's what we have today. When I was out in the parking lot a little earlier, I ran across somebody, and they have this rather peculiar story that they shared with me, and I really thought you all might want to hear it.
Good evening. My name is William Owen Richards. I came to Western Colorado in 1928. I grew up in Wales, and after serving in the King's Shropshire Light Infantry in the trenches of France, Gallipoli, and Crimea, I joined the Church Army. The Church Army was an organization for young men such as myself to share the good news of Jesus Christ through words and action in what we called open-air evangelism. I was first assigned to work with the poor and destitute in the slums of London, and then I was part of the first contingent that came to America, and I served in New York City, North Carolina, and British Columbia. Bishop Johnson of Colorado was concerned about the large number of people homesteading in isolated areas of the western slope. Bad roads and long distances made it impossible for many to attend a church service. Consequently, children were being brought up without any religious teaching. The bishop felt that something should be done, so we appealed to the Church Army, and 2 of us were sent to spend the summer in remote northwest Colorado. The Women's Auxiliary of the Diocese provided our transportation, a new Model T Ford, christened St. Elizabeth, dressing up the appellation Tin Lizzie. We were given a tent, cooking utensils, and everything they thought we would need. The sign on the side of our Ford said, "Mountain Missionaries." Our mission was to reach the people in the isolated areas of Grand, Routt, Moffat, and Rio Blanco counties. And our method was simple. We would visit a family, get their address, and the names and ages of their children if they desired to have Sunday school lessons mailed to them. Whenever possible, we arranged for services in schoolhouses on Sundays. We sent the names and addresses of the children into Denver, and Mrs. Boyd, who was appointed director of the work among the isolated, was proud to announce that she had the largest Sunday school in the Diocese of Colorado. It was a wonderful experience, except for the several encounters with rattlesnakes and a bear who robbed us of our dinner while I was to fetch water. When the mission in Colorado ended, I returned to Wales, my native land. But when the bishop sent me an appeal the next year, I returned to Colorado. And after attending St. John's Seminary in Greeley, I was ordained and appointed to Steamboat Springs in 1931 as vicar of St. Paul's. And I also served the missions in Craig and Oak Creek. Western Colorado was still missionary territory at the time. Now, it had been organized as a separate diocese in 1892, but I have to say, it seemed cursed. First, the silver panic hit just months after the diocese was created, and Western Colorado struggled with severe economic hardships from 1893 until World War II. And the Spanish influenza also hit hard. But it was also seemed cursed because the clergy didn't stay long. In 40 years, the longevity of clergy in Western Colorado averaged less than 2 years. And those that stayed more than 10 years could be counted on one hand. And that was true for bishops as well. Bishop Barker, the first bishop of Western Colorado, left the diocese after a year and a half due to ill health. He was dead at the age of 46. Western Colorado was then put under the jurisdiction of the Diocese of Utah. But then Bishop Leonard of Utah died of typhoid fever at the age of 55. He was followed by Bishop Franklin Spencer Spalding, the son of Bishop Spalding of Colorado. And he was killed crossing a street in Salt Lake City at age 49. The Diocese of Western Colorado was then separated again and served by Bishop Knight out of the Sea City of Glenwood Springs. After leading services in Marble in November of 1908, he walked the 12 miles to Redstone to lead an evening service. But he caught a chill. He was dead a few weeks later after serving the diocese for 10.5 months. Finally, the Diocese of Colorado was restored by General Convention in 1919 as a coterminous entity with the state. But West Slopers were suspicious of opportunists from the Front Range. But it should also be said we had a reputation for driving off our priests and killing our bishops. When I went into these communities, my first move was to organize a women's guild so that I had some contact in the town. I went around and got all the ladies who were members of the church together, and they were the ones that kept the churches going while I traveled about. There were some very strong leaders in the church in Western Colorado, such as Betty Noyce in Gunnison and Mrs. Keel in Meeker. But Samuel McFeeters of Durango, who attended St. John's Seminary with me and was a fellow Celt, said that we found the key to effective ministry in remote missions. We each married local pioneer women who taught us to love the country and the people. As it turns out, the priest who served the longest on the West Slope before me was John Wallace Old, and it turns out he too married a local girl. Now these women were resourceful. In Oak Creek, when we proposed holding services, some of the ladies were positive that we could secure the use of Bell Hall on Hickory Flats. I went down to look the place over. It was just a rough hall with a cook stove in the middle, and the place was filthy dirty. I went back and got some of our ladies together, and we cleaned the place and fixed it up for services that night. Now I had a small portable altar that I carried with me. It had all the vessels, the candlesticks, the vases, and everything we needed for the service. So a card table was set up and a portable altar was placed on it, and we had our first communion service in the new mission. On my return to Steamboat Springs, I met my senior warden, and his first question was, well, how did you get on? Where did you hold our service? I said, in Bell Hall. He said, my lord, Hickory Flats, that's where all the bootleggers are. The ladies of Oak Creek later presented me with a very nice stand for my portable altar. It had a cross cut in the front of it and a red background. I thought they had it made for the service, and I was quite proud of it. On my visits to the mission, I would bring out the stand and put the portable altar on it. But every time I did, the men in the congregation started to snicker. Mr. Lutke, the druggist, was a good friend of mine, and one day I asked, Ferd, why is it that whenever I bring out the stand or the portable altar, you men all snicker? Well, he said, all right. It came down from Yampa. One of the ladies had an uncle up there who runs the store, and it was in the room above the store. I said, well, what purpose did they have for it there? Well, he blushed and blurted out, well, if you've got to be so inquisitive, it used to belong to the Ku Klux Klan. In the early 30s, the Depression was being felt in Western Colorado. And in October of 1931, the bishop told me that I was to be moved to St. James Church in Mika. And that in addition, I was to continue charge of the services in Craig, Steamboat Springs, and Oak Creek. At the time, I wondered why the sudden transfer from Steamboat Springs to Meeker. Many years later, I discovered the answer. In September of 1931, the General Convention of the Episcopal Church was meeting in Denver, and I was there. At the same time, the Grand Chapter of the Order of the Eastern Star was meeting in Denver.